Hi everyone, Tom Kofer with OnPoint Consulting. Today we are extremely excited to be sharing individual recording learning sessions from a very highly successful free OnPoint Sage CRE web conference that we recently presented to Sage 300 users all over the country. We had 10 great sessions that lasted 2 days that were extremely well attended and wanted to pass those on to you as part of OnPoint's continuing ongoing commitment to you, our Sage 300 users. This particular session that I'm introducing is on Sage 300 CRE tips and tricks, best practices, and really it focuses on learning the secrets of the pros that use Sage 300 CRE every day and just how to make your day a little more efficient, how to speed up processes, and address those learning gaps that many of us have from learning. You're really learning the Sage 300 software from our fellow workers or never having been trained. Um, we're able to do this um, really because of our deep pool of very experienced senior Sage 300 consultants, trainers, software developers, and custom report developers. We have a lot of deep resources that we can rely on, and we want to make those available to you for sure. Um, in addition to our support training and consulting services, we also provide Sage 300 CRE customers with processes that we call optimization and business process reviews. And those are designed to help determine if your Sage software can be extended and you can continue to use it um, for the near to long-term future, or if it should be replaced. We've helped hundreds of Sage 300 CRE customers over the past 30 years, and we're really here to help you gain the maximum use of your software and extend the life of your investment. We are here to help you. If you find this video helpful, please like us or share with anyone on Facebook, LinkedIn, and you can also find us at onpoint-software.com. Thank you so much, and we hope you enjoy the sessions with our compliments, and please stay well, friends.
Again, my name is Linda Whitener, and I'm a consultant with OnPoint, and glad that everybody has taken the time uh, to come visit these sessions and get out of that quarantine mode, kind of feel like you're interacting with somebody else. So, what do we want to learn on this session? It's just some miscellaneous tips and tricks and different modules in Sage, except for the payroll module. That is the next session where we have specifically for the payroll module the tips and tricks. So it's just little things that learned throughout the years, and uh, I've had many of the duh moments, so I thought I'd start uh, creating a list of those. And so that's what I'm want to bring to you during this session. Um, First of all, the function keys. If you are used to working on the keyboard and you are a function key person, this is the list of function keys and what they do. So like if you're in changing a vendor and made some changes there, instead of having to pick up your hand and go over to the mouse and click save, you can just do an F2, and then an F3 is the close or the finish. F4, anytime you're going to your mouse to click on that list button to get a list of vendors, or a list of account numbers, something, do the F4. Those are the ones F2, 3, and 4 are the ones that I use most of the time. Then there's the conditions and ranges, or previous and next, the other function keys there. But it is definitely minimizes the time going back and forth to your mouse if you can get used to doing the function keys. The dates on the bank reconciliation. When it asks you for the date, always put the last day of the month when you're doing the reconciliation as the bank statement date, even though it might say the 29th or the 30th, because that's the cutoff date for the transactions that it will give you. So if you put the 29th on there, it wouldn't show you anything past the 29th. But if you're trying to reconcile to general ledger, you need it through the end of the month, because that's what the general ledger is going to give you. It's always a full month report. So you don't want to cut off any transactions that were out there for the 30th and the 31st. The Sage desktop, if you're not using it, try to start using it. When it first came out, I know I had to even force myself to get out of the mode of using TS main. And some people that I still go and visit today, they may open up the desktop, but they kind of go to the module like accounts payable, that they're going back into it the old way. And what the desktop does for you is that you're not a module hog, meaning that once you launch that accounts payable module and it sits down there at the bottom, that's taking up a use of that module, even though you may not be doing anything in it. And nobody else, if you only have one use, then nobody else can get in it. And versus when it's on the desktop and you're using it through the tasks and setup, once you are done doing what you're doing and you close out of it, it releases that use of the module. And so other people can get in and use it. And I'll take you out there and show you what I mean on that. And then also there's the feature, it's the My Tasks column. It's like your favorites. You can customize that and create lists of reports to run or things to do or whatever, like when you're closing out the month or you're setting up a new job, you might have to do different things. So you can create those in little groupings. And the My Task could also be designed by the job duties. And so then your desktop configuration can be designed by accounts payable or job cost. And then when somebody new starts, then you put that desktop configuration onto their computer and say, here's what I want you to do. These are, your favorites. And then they don't have to know where that report is on the menu because it's right there on their favorites. So speaking of the desktop configuration, you want to store that desktop configuration on the server as maybe their name dot and the extension is ds that's hard to say, DSK. So it would be Linda.dsk for desktop. The default location where it usually, when you go to save it, is on their computer, their individual workstation. I had a customer a long time ago, he'd gotten a new computer. And so then he called it his magic screen. He says, my magic screen isn't there anymore. And that's because it was on his computer that he just got rid of. And so we had to log into that old computer, get it, save it up to the network, and then we can pull it down from the network. So just make sure that all of the desktop configurations are saved on the server. And then, people get new computers. It's just a matter of replacing it and saying that you want to use that desktop configuration, and they're back in business. So on security setup, it can be a massive thing to maintain, to control. When you're looking at somebody, what kind of access do they have? So I usually set it up by module, and we have TS, which is just uh, the main thing, just to operate the system. And then there's accounts receivable, accounts payable, cash management, your modules. And so if you have different levels of users, say in accounts payable, and you can go and call it AP1, AP2, AP3, so that you know just by the name of this role what they're pretty much able to get into. And also just by looking at a person and what roles they have assigned to them, okay, they can get into job costs and they can get into AP and so on. And instead of having each one of them customized just for them. So, get a plan together and kind of lay out everybody where you want them to fall, but set up the security by the module. Now the TS is just used for miscellaneous items, just to operate the system, like allowing them uh, eh, the printer um, and allowing them to get into customize, which is customizing their workstation. That's fine, but do not give them access to tools and options, because that's how the system is run. And it's also, they can open up the master files to turn the audit trails on. And also, don't give them access to the settings in each module, like AR settings, AP settings, JC settings. Anybody that is not an application administrator should not have access to those types of things. So, like I said, this is just tips and tricks. So we're bouncing all over the software. So, but in moving stuff to history and archiving, what's the difference between those two? So moving transactions to history is just moving it from the current file to the history file within your live data folder. But if you want to, and it's readily accessible, you're in that data folder, you can pull only the current file, you can pull only the history file, or you can pull both. But the main reason for moving something to history is so that if you're running reports off of the current file, it's not having to look through that older information. Versus archiving, that's moving transactions from your current live data folder to an archive folder. So in order to look at that data, you would actually have to change data folders, get out of your live folder to the archive data folder. And also it's for your master files. So like with job cost, you can only have one master file. Well, I won't say you can only have one. In normal settings, people only have one, say, job cost master file. There are ways to have more than one, but for the most part, people just operate with one job cost master file. And so in order to move jobs out, you have to move them out of this data folder to your archive data folder. And then that also minimizes that list of available jobs to charge to in your live data folder. And you simply, to go over to the archive data folder, it's just like switching companies. You go to File, Open Company, and choose your archive. So in the moving transactions to history, it's usually you're in the application, you go to Tools, Move Transactions, Current to History. And the XX is the module initials, like APJCAR. So then each module has different recommendations on when to move them to history. So for instance, general ledger, you would want at least your current fiscal year would be in the current file, and any of your prior fiscal years would be in the history file. In job cost, you can, if you want to, monthly move transactions to history for jobs that have closed. So you would just run it, and the condition is that it's for closed jobs only, that you move those to history. And other than that, people usually wait till after the end of the year and the CPA has done their audit, and anything that is on that completed contracts list, they might move it to history, or they most of the time usually archive those jobs and those transactions. In payroll, the current year, it says should be, it must be in the current file, and prior years are in the history file. So one caution on payroll, because there is not the ability to move it from history to current. So if you don't want to mess up your W-2s and stuff, do not move anything with a check date of this current year to the history file, because that will mess it up. And it actually gives you a little message about that too when you're moving that. Accounts payable and cash management. It's usually kept in the current file until those transactions are archived. And it's usually you're keeping about 2 years worth of data in the current file. Because once it's moved to history, you can't change coding on it anymore. You can't do anything with it once it's in history. But usually people keep about 2 years worth because they do like to go back and research prior invoices and stuff. So we leave that out there for a little bit. So if you are going to archive stuff, which means moving it into a different data folder, this is kind of the data structure that I use. I have an archive data folder that's just out there on the server. Within that, it has a folder for PJ and JC jobs. Because if you have project management, you have to move those jobs into a location first before you move the JC jobs. And so that's why those two are combined. And that's where your jobs and the transactions for those jobs go. For accounts payable, when we move invoices out, we usually do it, by the year. And so we're in 2020 now, so we probably wouldn't have a 2019. The latest would have been that we have a 2018. But you need to put and just take a copy of your vendor master file the way it is right now and just place a copy in that data folder. Then you can move the invoices to that archive so that when you're pulling up reports and you're looking at these invoices, you need to know what vendor it was. And so that's why you just place a copy of the vendor file over there. Now, in the PJ and the JC jobs, you just keep adding your jobs to it because you're actually moving the job and you're moving the transactions. It's different with the accounts payable because you don't move the vendors. There's no way to move them. There's just ways to delete them. So we just take a complete copy and put it out there for accounts payable. But then if we go and delete some vendors that hadn't been used in a while, that's why each time we make that move, we have to get the current copy of the vendor master file into that archived area. So on the general ledger side, we have fiscal year end 2018, fiscal year end 2019, and this is just the archive copy of the way it was for that fiscal year. So after your adjusting entries are done and you're not going to change that year anymore, which you would be in the following year, but we take a copy of that and just place it there because that's our our historical copy, and it's never going to roll any further than that. And then the same thing with the payroll. It is just a copy of the data. We don't have to get the full uh, data folder. Like with general ledgers, just your general ledger files. With payroll, it's just your payroll files. We just take a copy and put them over there. So here is the ones for the year ended 2018, 2019. Um, on your chart of accounts, in our previous class in the reconciliation, we had talked about that, well, if your financial statement design is missing some account numbers and stuff, and you're always having to go and update that because you add new accounts, you might try putting start and stop accounts so that every account number or range is accounted for on your financial statement design. So you would have like 1,000, if it's not already being used, is that you actually call the account start of current assets. 1499 is the end of your current assets. And then 1500 is the start of non-current. 2900, whoops, I'm sorry, that should be 1999, is the end of non-current assets. I was thinking of going into liabilities, so you would use the same kind of numbers, 2000, 2499, 2500, 2999 as the start and end of your current and non-current liabilities. Then your equity runs from 3,000 to 3999. You know, your income is all your 4,000s, your cost of sales usually is your 5,000s. So whatever your structure is, if you did the start and stop accounts, then you're always, if you needed to add a G&A account, you're somewhere in here in the 7,000s. You don't have to worry about your financial statement design because it's that range is already out there. So it definitely minimizes having to change that design so often. The module called Information Assistant. If you run short on licenses, people says, well, I can't get in and do something because the license is being used, you know, however many you have, you might have them communicate back with you, you know, did you want to do just a report or an inquiry? And try to get people to use the information assistant license to run inquiries and reports and to save the actual module license to do setup and tasks. Because, I mean, I don't get into the, you know, cost of modules and stuff, but I was pretty sure like the information assistance, they could be like half the cost of the actual module. So if you're needing more licenses, knowing what you need it for, you know, to do setup and tasks, well, yes, you have to get the real module. If you're just a lot of people running inquiries and reports, if you invest more in information assistant, you can access all inquiries and reports of all the different modules from Information Assistant. So also in the first session, we had brought up this My Task area. And you can customize the My Task area with some groupings, might be like month end, quarterly, year end, setting up new projects, you know, whatever you want this list to be, because you can put them in any order, not just the way that they are on the menu, but you know, you want to do step 1 and then step 2, and so that puts them, you can put them in the order that you want them to be done in. And you can link more than just items in Sage, like documents, spreadsheets, or web links. So this little icon shows you want a file or an application. Like a file would be like an Excel file or a Word document. Or if it's a task from Sage, or if it's a web link that you want them to go out to the web to do something. And when we get over to the software, I'll show you the desktop real quick.
We do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
The first question is, what if your bank statement for February says 2/3/20 to 3/1/20? Would you still use 2/29/2020?
Okay, 2/3/20 to
1/20.
1/20. Never seen one like that. I would probably look at the bank statement and see if there is actually anything that was on March 1st that cleared, because then you could do it 2/29 or 28. But if it continually goes into the next month, then yes, if there was something that cleared on the 1st and that was dated the 1st, then it would be that March date, which would be the 3/31, because you cannot get your general ledger to cut off as of 3/1. It's going to be a full month.
And the next question is, will you be demonstrating how to access Sage Desktop? From what you're saying, we are using the old TS main, but I do not know how to get the new desktop.
Yes, I was going to go there. I think this is the end of this PowerPoint, so I was going to go over and show the desktop.
Okay. It is the 10-minute warning.
Okay. All righty. So let's go over here. So this is the desktop, and like this icon right here is the one that gets to the Sage desktop, what we are looking at now, versus all these other ones, and especially people going into TS main. And so that is the one that you want to use. So the areas of the desktop, this is the task, and you can turn any of these on or off. So if we took the favorites or the my tasks off. This is your task list. So there's, no change in any of this. It is what it is. But if you think about it, the TS main, instead of going across the top with the task setup inquiry reports, it's just going down the list here. So you're seeing the exact same stuff. And so the task, then there's all your tasks. Before I forget it, there are a few things that you can only access by using the desktop. And one of them is, if you're a security administrator, getting to security, the only way is through the desktop. So, like, hopefully, Lori, can you see the very bottom where it says type here to search? Can you see that bar on yours?
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to make sure. So if I go in, like if I'm in TS main, I would already have AP down here. But going through the desktop, I'm in the desktop, but I'm not using anything yet. So if I open up vendors, so now I have a window open and my AP is up down there. So as long as I have this window open, I'm taking up a license of accounts payable. But I go in there, fix some people, do whatever. When I close out, that AP goes away. So now that license is free for anybody to use. So that's why I said it takes care of module hogs. Some people, they'll go into every single module and pull down a use of it just so they grab it and so they can use it and not get locked out. But this, you're only taking up a license when you have a window in that module open. But even like here, this, if I see people do this all the time, they open up the desktop, man, I'm using the desktop. But what they do then is click that one and they're in it the old way. So now if I went to do other stuff, I still have this window open, so I'm taking up a license of it. But here we went and looked at the tasks. So there's all the tasks, the same thing that you see under tasks over here. So it took me, when this first came out a long time ago, I forced myself to say, I'm gonna use this. And so it does take a little bit. I can understand you're used to the way that you go into it now, but once you get used to this, then you forget about the old way.
There's one more question.
Okay.
What version of Sage is this?
I'm ashamed to say I am on an older version. So it is not up to date. I guess I will tell you how old my version is. I'm on like 15, so that's pretty bad. But because I think they're on, most people stay about a year behind, so most people are probably on 18 or 19 right now. So mine is definitely an older version. Was that the last question?
Yes, ma'am. There are no more questions.
Okay. So this is the task that you would see if you're going the old way. But the added feature that you have is this My Task. And so if you wanted to do monthly closing, and let's just do something here real quick. I got about 5 minutes. So if I wanted to pull a current ledger, I just drag and drop it over there. If I wanted to do financial statements, drag and drop it over there. If I wanted to do this one. So, you know, whatever you want to pull over there to do, you can right click and you can change the name of it, whatever suits you. You can also click and hold on it and rearrange it. And then you can also, if you if you get up here in the gray area and right click and say add to my task, and this is where it can be a file or an application. Task, I usually just drag and drop them like I did. And then there's a web link, but a file or application can be, you know, any of your files like spreadsheets or a Word document or anything like that. And then when you're not doing your monthly closing business, then just close it up, those little arrow things. So if you had monthly closing, quarterlies, especially for a payroll person doing quarterlies, putting that stuff out there, you know, year end stuff, just a way to change around this task listing to be specific to somebody's job duties over here. But whenever you change this, you want to do this here to save the configuration. And what I'm using right now is the desktop, which is the default configuration. But I can go to File, Save Configuration As, and I can save it as my name, and I would want to save it up onto the server. And then this side over here, usually Sage has their stuff out here, and but you can change it to your company's web page over here. I mean, you know, any kind of internet page you can pull over here. And then up under tools, the options, that's where you change what your default desktop configuration is and where it is stored. And then your current home page is this Sage stuff over there. And then also so I don't have security turned on mine, but this is how you'd get to the security area for people that are security administrators. And I'm trying to think if there was, I think that's about all I can think of on that, and we're out of time also. Was there any last questions?
No, there's no more questions.
Okay, alrighty. And so real quickly to wrap it up, we just learned some miscellaneous tips and tricks and different modules, and you did it. And so with that, I will turn it back over to Barclay.
Awesome,
Bye,
Linda.
everybody. Thanks for coming.
Awesome, Linda. Thank you. And like Linda's slide said, she'll be doing payroll tips and tricks next. So if you haven't registered for that and you still want to, just go ahead and go to our page, onpoint-software.com/spring20, and you can get registered there. Also, on our website, you'll find our free Sage 300 CRE procedure guides, as well as additional webinars and videos. And we really do want your feedback, so you can email us or watch your email over the next few days for a survey. We want to bring you information that you find valuable. So again, any feedback is appreciated. And if you have any other questions for Linda that you didn't get to ask during the session, feel free to email those to us as well at clientcare@onpoint-software.com. And we will see you guys at a later session, I hope. If not, have a great rest of your day. Thank you.